Ever notice how the more you obsess over remembering a dream, the faster it vanishes? It's like trying to grasp water. The tighter you squeeze, the less you hold. That's the paradox the Vikings faced with their gods. They desperately wanted to understand their fate, the looming Ragnarok, but the closer they looked, the more elusive the truth became. What if their very attempts to prevent it caused it? The sagas whisper of gods and monsters, of a world born from fire and ice. Forget dusty tomes and academic jargon. We're diving headfirst into the raw, visceral heart of Norse myth. This isn't a history lesson. It's a story of survival, sacrifice, and the terrifying beauty of a world perpetually on the brink. Imagine a land sculpted by brutal winds and unforgiving winters. Picture longships slicing through icy waves, their dragon prows pointed toward unknown horizons. Vikings, hardened by the elements, their lives a constant negotiation with death, believed their world was alive, teeming with forces both benevolent and malevolent. The very air crackled with magic, with the presence of gods who were powerful, flawed, and deeply invested in the fate of mortals. These weren't distant, ethereal deities. Odin, Thor, Loki. They walked among men, intervened in their affairs, and were as susceptible to pride, jealousy, and rage as any mortal warrior. Odin, the Allfather, craved knowledge above all else, sacrificing an eye for a single drink from the well of wisdom. What kind of knowledge could possibly be worth such a price? He was a restless wanderer, disguised as a beggar, seeking secrets that could avert the inevitable doom prophesied for the gods, Ragnarok. The Norse worldview wasn't one of passive acceptance. They believed in shaping their own destiny, in facing challenges head-on, even if the odds were stacked against them. This spirit of defiance permeates their myths, fueling the epic battles and heroic sacrifices that define their culture. They honoured courage, loyalty and strength, both physical and mental. Their heroes weren't flawless paragons. They were flawed individuals who rose to the occasion, often at great personal cost. Think of Beowulf facing Grendel, a monster born of darkness and vengeance. The concept of fate, or wyrd, played a crucial role in their lives. It was a complex web of interconnected events, shaping the destinies of gods and mortals alike. While they believed in fate, they didn't see themselves as mere puppets of destiny. They believed in facing their fate with courage and honour, in making the most of the time they had, even if it meant facing certain death. This acceptance of mortality, coupled with a fierce will to live, gave the Vikings a unique perspective on life and death. Think of the Valkyries, Odin's shield maidens, soaring across battlefields, choosing the bravest warriors to escort to Valhalla, the Hall of the Slain. What a concept. Eternal feasting and fighting, preparing for the final battle against the forces of chaos. Death wasn't an end, but a transition to a different realm, a continuation of the warrior's life. For those who didn't die in battle, there was Folkvanga, ruled by the goddess Freya, a realm of beauty and pleasure. The Norse myths are steeped in symbolism. Each character, each creature, each event represents something deeper, reflecting the values, fears and aspirations of the people who created them. Thor's hammer, Mjolnir, wasn't just a weapon. It was a symbol of strength, protection and order. Loki, the trickster god, wasn't simply a mischievous prankster. He represented chaos, change, and the unpredictable nature of the universe. These symbols resonated with the Vikings, providing them with a framework for understanding the world around them. The harsh environment shaped their beliefs. The long dark winters, the unpredictable storms, and the constant threat of famine instilled in them a deep respect for the power of nature. They saw the gods as forces of nature, personified and given human characteristics. Thor was the god of thunder, his hammer echoing across the sky during storms. Freya was the goddess of fertility, her presence ensuring the bounty of the land. Consider the creation myth, how the world was formed from the corpse of the giant Ymir. His flesh became the earth, his blood the sea, his bones the mountains, and his skull the sky. It's a brutal, visceral image, reflecting the harsh realities of their world. This violent beginning sets the tone for the entire Norse saga, a world where creation and destruction are inextricably linked. The tales were passed down orally for generations, evolving and adapting with each telling. Skilled storytellers, known as skalds, memorized vast amounts of poetry and prose, weaving intricate narratives that captivated their audiences. These stories weren't just entertainment, they were a vital part of their culture, preserving their history, their values, and their beliefs. They reminded them of who they were and where they came from. The Elder Edda, a collection of ancient poems, and the prose, Edda, written by Snorri Sturluson, are our primary sources for understanding Norse mythology. These texts, written centuries after the Viking Age, provide invaluable insights into the beliefs and practices of the Norse people. However, they are not without their limitations. They were written by Christian scholars who may have interpreted the myth through a Christian lens. The skalds, the poets, were critical. They were the keepers of the law, the masters of words who could transport their listeners to another world. They used kennings, metaphorical phrases, to add layers of meaning to their stories. For example, sea steed for ship, or battle sweat for blood. These kennings added depth and complexity to the narratives, making them more engaging and memorable. They saw the world as a series of interconnected realms, each with its own unique characteristics. Asgard, the home of the gods, was a majestic city, protected by towering walls and guarded by the watchful eye of Heimdall. Midgard, the realm of humans, was a more mundane place, filled with both beauty and hardship. Jotunheim, the land of the giants, was a wild and untamed wilderness, home to formidable creatures. These realms were connected by Yggdrasil, the world tree, a colossal ash tree whose roots and branches span the entire cosmos. Yggdrasil, the world tree, connects everything. Its roots delve into the darkest depths of Hell, the underworld, while its branches reach towards the glittering halls of Asgard. It is a symbol of life, death, and rebirth, a constant reminder of the cyclical nature of existence. The Norns, the goddesses of fate, dwell at the base of Yggdrasil, weaving the threads of destiny. The gods themselves were not immortal in the traditional sense. They were powerful, yes, but they were also vulnerable. They could be wounded, killed, and even replaced. They relied on special foods and drinks to maintain their youth and strength. Their vulnerability made them relatable, humanizing them in a way that made their stories all the more compelling. Ragnarok, the twilight, a testament to their mortality, the epic battle that would end the world as they knew it. The sun would turn black, the stars would fall, and the earth would be consumed by fire. Giants and monsters would rise from the depths, challenging the gods for dominion over the cosmos. Thor would battle the Midgard serpent, Jormungandr, and both would perish in the struggle. Odin would face the wolf Fenrir and be devoured. The world would be destroyed, but from the ashes would rise a new world, a new beginning. It was inevitable, yet they fought against it anyway. The Vikings, a constant struggle between order and chaos, between light and darkness. The gods represented arrangement, while the giants and monsters represented chaos. This struggle was not just external, it was also internal, reflecting the constant battles that raged within the human heart. The Norse myths provided this struggle, offering guidance and inspiration for navigating the challenges of life. The legacy of Norse mythology continues to resonate today, inspiring countless books, movies, and video games. The characters, the themes, and the stories continue to captivate audiences around the world. The Vikings may be gone, but their myths live on, reminding us of the power of storytelling and the enduring appeal of the human spirit. But that was only the beginning. Ever it vanishes, its you hold. That's the paradox, the Vikings. They Ragnarok, the truth became. What it? Imagine a tree. A colossal tree, Yggdrasil. Its roots plunge into the chilling realm of the dead, while its branches scrape against the very heavens. Yggdrasil isn't merely a tree, it's the axis of existence, a central pillar. It binds the 9 worlds together, weaving invisible threads that connect gods, mortals, and monsters. In the upper branches rests Asgard, home to the Aesir, the majestic gods. Their halls gleam with gold. There, amidst the clouds, stands Valhalla. It is a grand hall where fallen warriors feast, awaiting the final battle, Ragnarok. Aesir embody strength, wisdom, and majesty. Below Asgard lies Vanaheim, the domain of the Vanir, gods associated with fertility, magic, and the cycles of nature. It is a verdant, thriving place where nature and magic intertwine. Harmony with the earth forms the foundation of all existence there. Then comes Midgard, the world of humans. Picture a land surrounded by an endless ocean. Within it, the serpent Jormungandr eternally circles. It guards the boundaries of this realm. Midgard is a centre of events, where the fates intertwine. Life is full of struggle here, but it is in this struggle that strength of spirit is born. Far to the east stretches Jotunheim, land of the giants, a harsh realm of towering mountains, windswept plains, and untamed wilderness. Giants are powerful beings, symbolizing chaos and destruction. Their presence is crucial to maintaining balance. Next is Alfheim, a place where magic intertwines with light. This world is inhabited by the light elves. They are beings associated with art, beauty, and wisdom. Their realm is filled with mysterious energy, and their aid often proves decisive in the struggles. In contrast, there exists Svartalfheim and Nidavellir. These are the subterranean realms of the dark elves and dwarves. Here, deep within the earth, skilled artisans forge magical artifacts. Think of Thor's hammer, Mjolnir, or Odin's ring, Draupnir. Their work remains unseen, yet it grants the gods their power. Even lower lies Niflheim, a world of mist, fog, and eternal cold. It is the oldest of the realms, embodying primordial chaos. Its icy breath serves as a reminder of how fragile and precious life is. Opposite Niflheim lies Muspelheim, the realm of fire. Unquenchable flames reign supreme here, governed by the giant Surtur. His appearance at Ragnarok will signal the end of the old world and the beginning of the new. Finally, there's Helheim, the world of the dead. Those who die of natural causes go there. The goddess Hel rules it. She's half beautiful, half disfigured. Her realm is quiet, sombre, but not malevolent. It is a place where souls find peace, becoming part of the great cycle of life and death. All these worlds are interconnected by invisible paths. They are connected through the roots and branches of Yggdrasil. They influence each other, creating constant movement and dynamism. This eternal interplay of order and chaos, light and darkness, makes Norse mythology truly alive and profound. Yggdrasil, he embodies untamed chaos. From his body, whole tribes of giants are born. However, even such a powerful being needs sustenance. That's when the cow Audumla appears in Ginnungagap. From her udders flows endless milk which nourishes Ymir. The cow herself survives by licking salty ice flows. Within these ice flows, the figure of a god named Buri gradually emerges. Buri resembles a human, but he possesses special divine power. He lacks Ymir's chaotic nature. His essence is much closer to the future gods, wise and purposeful. Buri becomes the progenitor of a new lineage. From him comes his son Bor, and Bor has 3 sons, Odin, Vili, and Ve. They grow up amidst the endless void, but they feel a call to action. The world has remained in a state of chaos for too long, and sooner or later they will have to struggle with the giants who multiply from Ymir's body. The brothers understand that as long as the giant's element reigns in Ymir's head, there will be no true order. Soon, a struggle breaks out between the gods and the ice giants. The very first, Ymir, becomes the main target of the 3 brothers. The death of this giant signifies not only the overthrow of a chaotic force, but also universal measure of order. By killing Ymir, the brothers commit an act of creation. Thus, the stars appear. Thus, from the boundless emptiness of Ginnungagap, an ordered cosmos is born. But in its depths, the memory remains forever that the world arose not from harmony, but from the collision of 2 hostile elements, from the cruel sacrifice of the first giant. And although the gods, like skilled architects, are now engaged in creating habitable land and arranged it so that people, animals, and various wonderful creatures could walk on it. The primordial shock of Ginnungagap lives under their heavenly vault. This is a reminder that even in the very heart of order, that very chaos from which there would have been no beginning pulsates. What happened next changed everything. Ever it vanishes, it's you hold. That's the paradox the Vikings. They Ragnarok, the truth became. What it? Odin thirsted for knowledge, not for power, not for gold, but for the hidden mechanisms of the universe itself. This desire became his all-consuming obsession, but everything comes at a price. He learned of Mimir's well, a source brimming with primeval wisdom. It lay at the root of Yggdrasil, its waters steeped in the secrets of the past, present, and future. The well's guardian was Mimir, a giant renowned for his incredible prescience. When Odin approached him, seeking a draught, Mimir imposed a condition. It was a condition unbearable to any other. Mimir demanded Odin's eye in exchange. Without hesitation, Odin plucked out his eye and cast it into the well's waters. He became one-eyed, but gained what he sought: infinite knowledge. Mimir became vital in Odin's quest. Even after the giant's death, his magically preserved head continued to advise Odin. The god carried it always, ready to hear its wisdom, but this sacrifice was merely the first step. With wisdom came prophetic visions. Odin learned a terrible truth: the world would perish, and even the gods could not prevent it. From that moment, he began to devise plans to save what remained, desperately attempting to avert the inevitable. The Allfather's thirst drove him to the most dangerous places. He journeyed to Helheim, the bleak, to summon a dead sorceress's soul. He sought answers about the future, about the end of times, and whether it could be avoided. The path to Helheim was arduous. The realm lay under the dominion of Hel, Loki's daughter, and was surrounded by walls of mist and despair. To enter, Odin disguised himself as an old man and traversed treacherous lands haunted by the spirits of the dead. Meeting the sorceress, he heard prophecies of Ragnarok. She told him of a world consumed by fire, of Fenrir the wolf breaking his chains, of Jormungandr the serpent rising from the depths of the ocean, and of the Aesir themselves falling in that final battle. Odin didn't just seek secrets, he brought new knowledge into the world. He discovered the runes, symbols used to manipulate reality, but their creation demanded an incredible sacrifice. To unlock the rune's secrets, Odin hung for 9 days and nights from Yggdrasil, piercing himself with his own spear. Starving and thirsting, he gazed into the abyss of the universe, seeking answers. Legend says that he died and was reborn, gaining understanding of the runes. Each rune held a specific power. They were not mere symbols, but tools to influence fate. Runes could summon protection, predict the future, or even alter it. These symbols became an important part of magic for both gods and humans. Odin's story shows that knowledge is the greatest power, but its price is always high. He gave an eye, shed his own blood, and risked his very life to learn more about the world. Now, after Odin's sacrifices and trials for wisdom and the sake of the world, we can examine other key figures in the Norse pantheon, characters who complete the story not only with strength, but with cunning and stark contradictions. One of the most fascinating aspects of Norse mythology is the unusual partnership of Thor and Loki. Thor embodies strength, determination, and fearlessness. Son of Odin and the earth goddess Jord, he inherited his father's power, but lacked his subtlety and cunning. Thor is as direct as a lightning strike, always ready to fight and never considering the consequences. His main weapon is the legendary hammer Mjolnir, created by the dwarf smiths Brokkr and Sindri. This hammer could shatter mountains, strike down giants, and return to Thor's hand no matter how far it was thrown. To wield such power, Thor wore iron gloves and a magical belt, Megingjord, which doubled his strength. These attributes made him not just strong, but practically invincible. Thor's enemies were primarily giants, or Jotnar, which is interesting because Thor's own mother came from the Jotnar lineage. But as Thor's hammer roared forward, the shield and whetstone shattered into splinters, and the giant himself was crushed. A fragment of the whetstone, however, struck Thor's head, nearly killing him, but even wounded he remained unbowed. Another well-known story is Thor's journey with Loki and Thialfi to the giant Utgard Loki's kingdom. Thor, the thunderous protector of Asgard, ventured into distant lands beyond the familiar world of the gods. His goal was simple: to prove that no giant, no matter how cunning or strong, could rival him. Thor, as always, took Loki, the catalyst for numerous adventures, and Thialfi, a young but exceptionally fast boy who later became his loyal servant. When they finally reached Utgard, Thor immediately realized that he had entered a place where nothing was as it seemed. The majestic palace towering before him was so enormous that Thor and his companions could walk right through the gates. Inside, they were greeted by Utgard Loki, the ruler of this place, whose sly smile concealed something sinister. He recognized Thor instantly, and like any giant, decided to test him. Utgard Loki was cunning. He challenged Thor to demonstrate his abilities, but everything that followed only fueled Thor's anger. In the echoing halls of Utgard, the challenges began, each more deceptive than the last. Loki, eager to prove his own worth, boasted that he could eat faster than anyone. He was pitted against Logi, a wild man who devoured not only the meat on the bone but the bone itself, leaving Loki defeated and humiliated. Thialfi, renowned for his speed, raced against Hugi, a figure so swift that he left the young servant far behind in every heat. Thor, confident in his strength, attempted to drain a drinking horn, but the level seemed never to drop no matter how much he drank. He tried to lift a cat from the floor, but the beast, though seemingly small, felt impossibly heavy, barely budging under his might. Finally he wrestled with an old woman, Ellie, but the more he fought, the weaker he became, until he was forced to his knees. Defeated and bewildered, Thor and his companions prepared to leave Utgard. Utgard Loki, with a mocking smile, revealed the truth. The drinking horn was connected to the ocean, and Thor had drunk enough to lower the sea level significantly. The cat was Jormungandr, the Midgard serpent, whose length encircled the world, and Thor had nearly lifted it from the earth, threatening to unleash chaos upon the realms. Ellie was old age itself, and no one, not even Thor, could defeat the relentless march of time. The only challenge Thor technically won was the eating contest, and that was rigged too because Loki was competing against wildfire. As the gods turned to confront Utgard Loki, they saw that his palace and the entire kingdom had vanished without a trace. The giants used illusions and trickery to try and take down the gods, but ultimately failed. The halls were silent. Ever it vanishes. It's you hold. That's the paradox, the Vikings. They Ragnarok, the truth became. What it? Utgard Loki, ruler of the fortress, greeted them. An ominous air hung about him. He immediately recognized Thor, and to test him. Utgard Loki, cunning and sly, challenged Thor to prove his strength, only fueled Thor's anger. First, the drinking contest. A seemingly simple task for who could outdrink anyone. Thor raised the horn and took a massive gulp. Then another. The liquid level barely moved. For someone accustomed to victory, this was unthinkable. Utgard Loki proposed another test, lifting a cat. How hard could that be? Thor approached the feline, grabbed it under its belly and tried to lift. It remained stubbornly on the ground. He strained his mighty muscles, his face flushed with effort, managing to raise only one paw from the floor. Enraged and humiliated, Thor demanded another challenge. This time he would wrestle an old woman named Ellie. Thor charged into the fray, determined, but the old woman proved surprisingly strong. He struggled to move her, but she stood firm, rooted to the spot. At one point he even found himself on one knee before her. No one could believe what they were seeing. This wasn't the Thor they knew and feared. This was Thor confronting something he couldn't overcome with brute force alone. The next day, as they prepared to leave Utgard, Utgard Loki revealed the truth. Each challenge was not what it seemed. To the panicked, Thor turned to Loki, known for his sharp wit. Loki discovered that the giant Thrym had stolen the hammer and hidden it deep within his realm. Thrym made a bold demand. he would only return the hammer in exchange for the hand of the goddess Freya. Naturally, Freya refused, but Loki devised a cunning plan. Thor would dress as a bride and Loki would disguise himself as her handmaiden. Though furious at the humiliation, Thor agreed, knowing there was no other choice. When the bride arrived at Thrym's hall, a feast was thrown. Thor, pretending to be Freya, ate enough for 3, astonishing the giant. Loki explained that she had been so excited about the wedding that she hadn't eaten for days. Then Thrym ordered Mjolnir to be brought forth as a wedding gift. Thor seized the hammer, ripped off his veil, and unleashed his fury, destroying Thrym and his entire court. This tale showcased how Loki's cunning and Thor's strength could solve any problem when combined. Now, let's delve into the enigmatic Loki, arguably the most complex character in Norse mythology. He embodies contradiction. A giant by birth, yet living among the gods of Asgard, he is a trickster who both saves the world and brings it to the brink of destruction. He is duplicitous, yet endlessly charming. To some, he is a destroyer. To others, a catalyst for change. One thing is certain. Without Loki, Norse mythology would be far less captivating. To understand why Loki is as he is, one must examine his origins, his character, and his most notable deeds. Loki was born among the Jotun, the giants who represented chaos and primal forces. His father was the giant Fabauti, and his mother was Laufey. His very lineage defined Loki's dual nature. He whirled of chaos, but not necessarily bound by the ways of his people. Unusually, Loki became an ally of the gods of Asgard. He was not only their companion, but also the blood brother of Odin himself. What prompted Odin to accept Loki into Asgard? Perhaps it was his cunning, resourcefulness, and ability to solve complex problems, qualities that the other Aesir sometimes lacked. However, one of the most famous stories illustrating this duality is the abduction of Idun and her apples of youth. Idun youth and the guardian of the magical apples that granted the gods of Asgard eternal youth. Each time the Aesir gathered for a feast, Idun would bring forth her apples, and with each bite the gods would become strong and young again. One day, Asgard was deprived of this gift, and, as always, Loki was to blame. Loki embarked on a journey with Odin. During their travels, they found themselves in barren lands where food was scarce. They spotted a mighty ox, and the gods decided to cook it. But no matter how they tried, the meat wouldn't cook. The reason became clear when a giant named Thiazi, in the form of an eagle, appeared above them. He used magic to stop the fire and demanded a share of the meat. Loki, ever the trickster, challenged the giant. But Thiazi was not someone to be trifled with. He seized Loki in his talons and carried him high into the sky. In exchange for his freedom, the giant demanded that Loki help him kidnap Idun and her magical apples. Returning to Asgard, Loki concocted a cunning plan. What? Loki, in Asgard, hatched a treacherous scheme. He whispered to Idun that he'd discovered apples in the forest, even more radiant than her own. Transformed into a swift falcon, he soared towards Jotunheim, the giant suspected nothing of Loki's approach. He located Idun, and with a swift spell, transformed her into a nut, small enough to carry in his talons. He gripped her tightly and bolted from Thiazi's hall. The giant, enraged by the escape, gave chase. Loki flew as fast as he dared, the wind screaming past his falcon form. The gods of Asgard, seeing Loki's return and the pursuing giant, quickly built a massive pyre at the edge of Asgard. Thiazi, consumed by his rage, flew too close to the flames. His wings caught fire and he plummeted to the earth. The Aesir finished what the fire started, ending Thiazi's reign of terror. Idun returned to her true form, restored youth to the gods with her magical apples. Loki, despite his initial transgression, had once again proven his twisted worth. His deceptions and agility saved Asgard, but only after he'd nearly destroyed it. Yet Loki's chaos could not last forever. Each successful trick eroded the Aesir's trust. Loki, accustomed to being the centre of attention, crossed a line when he aided giants in the kidnapping of Sif, Thor's wife. Though trust in him faltered, Loki continued his games, seemingly oblivious to the fact that his days in Asgard were numbered. A complex figure, both hero and traitor, saviour and destroyer, Loki symbolised the very essence of myth. He reminded them that the world was never black and white, that every situation possessed multiple facets, and that change was the only constant. Now, consider how two great powers, the Aesir and the Vanir, clashed for control of the cosmos. But later, the powers had a chance to coexist. They existed simultaneously, yet they were fundamentally different. The Aesir, inhabitants of Asgard, embodied strength, martial prowess and order. They towered above the other realms because of their ambition for power. The Vanir, on the other hand, were closer to the earth. Their home was Vanaheim, and they controlled the forces of fertility, magic, and nature. It seemed that each race could rule in its own domain, but ambition and pride prevented them from coexisting peacefully. It began with a goddess named Gullveig, who arrived in Asgard invited by Heimdall. She was far from ordinary. Her body seemed to shimmer with gold, and her voice was enchanting. Gullveig brought magical knowledge and spoke of riches that the Aesir could acquire if they collaborated with the Vanir. But her greed for gold and blatant desire to influence the Aesir only provoked irritation. The Aesir, particularly Odin, deemed Gullveig a threat. They tried to eliminate her. Gullveig was seized and burned at the stake, but from the ashes she rose again and again. She returned to life 3 times, inciting fury and fear in the Aesir. To Vanaheim, this was an insult equivalent to a declaration of war. As rumours of Gullveig's demise spread, skirmishes began near the borders of Vanaheim. The Vanir believed that the Aesir had shown arrogance and disrespect, and they decided to prove their strength. The war between the Aesir and the Vanir was unlike any human battle. While the Aesir charged with swords and spears, the Vanir wielded magic, tearing the earth beneath their enemies' feet. They could cause the Aesir's weapons to shatter in their hands, scattering their disciplined ranks. The Aesir responded with their unwavering strength and military discipline. One episode of the war was the Siege of Asgard. The Vanir breached the defensive walls that the Aesir had painstakingly constructed. However, Odin, Thor, and the rest of the Aesir repeatedly rebuilt them, driving back the invaders. It was a stalemate where neither side could gain the upper hand. The lands of Asgard and Vanaheim were devastated, but the gods fought as if each battle would be their last. Years of war exhausted both sides. The Aesir and Vanir realized that their forces were evenly matched, and that continuing the fight would only lead to mutual destruction. One day, Odin and the leaders of Vanaheim gathered their armies at the borders of their realms, preparing for a decisive confrontation. But instead of initiating the battle, they met to negotiate. In these discussions, the parties decided to seek a compromise. Instead of weapons, they exchanged words. The Aesir and Vanir agreed to a truce that would solidify peace between their races. To seal the alliance, the Aesir and Vanir performed a ritual. They gathered their saliva in a cauldron, creating a shared liquid that symbolized their unification. From this liquid, a sage named Kvasir was created, embodying knowledge and harmony between the two peoples. Kvasir became a symbol of their new union. One of the key conditions of the peace was the exchange of hostages. Each side sent their best representatives to the other camp. The Vanir sent Njord, Freyja, and Freya. Njord, the god of the seas, winds, and wealth, became one of the most revered gods in Asgard. His children, Freyja and Freya, brought magic of fertility, prosperity, and love to Asgard.